"What the hell are you doing to my son?" Leonard screamed, his voice breaking as he lunged across the marble floor. In that split second, all he saw was his black maid holding a saw to his boy's leg. But what he didn't see? That moment was the first time Jamie had smiled in months. 2 weeks earlier. The gates of Linwood Estate opened like the yawning mouth of a mansion that hadn't felt joy in years. Inside, everything gleamed, the floors, the chandeliers, the windows. But underneath the polish was silence, a deep, padded kind of silence, like even grief had gotten tired of echoing through its halls. Leonard Campbell stepped through the door just after 6 p.m., briefcase in one hand, phone still to his ear, nodding to someone on the other end about leveraged shares and international PR fallout. But none of that mattered once he stepped inside. Or at least, it shouldn't have. He paused by the entryway, glancing at the untouched chess set near the fireplace, the cold tea service laid out by staff. His eyes barely flickered toward the staircase. He already knew. Jamie wouldn't be downstairs. He hadn't been in weeks. "Sir," the butler said politely. "Miss Morgan left Jamie's report on the study desk." Leonard gave a nod that was more muscle reflex than gratitude. Upstairs, Wendy Morgan knelt beside a wheelchair, wiping finger paint off a small plastic tray. Her sleeves were rolled up, and her yellow rubber gloves were flecked with blue and green splotches. Jamie, 7 years old and wide-eyed, was retelling his favorite part of a made-up dream. Something about time travel, dragons and flying pirate ships. "You were the captain and I was your lookout," he said with a toothy grin. Wendy laughed gently. "That why you were shouting 'Land ho' in your sleep last night?" "Yup," Jamie said, pointing to his leg. "The dragon bit that one off. I need a pirate leg now." Wendy raised an eyebrow. "Well, lucky for you, I'm also a certified dragon fight nurse and prosthetic leg builder. Let's go build one." She reached into the toy bin, pulled out a plastic toy saw and placed a hand gently on Jamie's shin. Jamie burst into giggles. Downstairs, Leonard heard the laughter. He hadn't heard his son laugh like that since... Back in the study, Leonard stared at Jamie's school report. Jamie seems increasingly withdrawn during class. He rarely speaks unless prompted and avoids physical group activities. He closed the folder slowly, the weight of it heavier than any quarterly report. As he stepped into the hallway again, a faint sound drifted down. Laughter. Jamie's. Real belly shaking from the gut joy. Leonard's brows drew in. He followed the sound. The laughter was louder now. Leonard's pace quickened as he climbed the stairs 2 at a time, his heartbeat rising, not from joy but instinct. He hadn't heard Jamie laugh like this since Rachel's funeral. Something didn't sit right. He followed the sound down the hallway toward Jamie's playroom, a room untouched by time or emotion until now. Then he heard it. "Hold still, Captain. We got to get this leg off before the sea monster's poison spreads." Leonard froze. His stomach dropped. Soaring. Was that? Soaring? He ran. He turned the corner, pushed the door open, and saw it. "What the hell are you doing to my son?" Leonard roared, his voice exploding through the room like thunder crashing into porcelain. In that split second, all he saw was his black maid crouched beside his disabled son, holding a saw to the boy's leg. He dropped the teddy bear. It hit the floor with a soft thud, but the sound felt like a gunshot in the room's sudden silence. Wendy's eyes widened. Jamie gasped. Leonard lunged forward, grabbing Jamie and pulling him away from her grasp, shielding his son like she was an intruder. "I trusted you in my home," he barked, rage and confusion battling in his voice. What kind of sick game is this?" Jamie's voice broke the tension. "Dad, stop!" the boy cried. "It's not real, it's just pretend." Leonard blinked. "What?" Jamie sniffled. "It's a pirate game. She was helping me build a new leg. She was going to tape cardboard and a broomstick to it, like a peg leg. It was just a plastic saw. Look." Wendy held it up. Bright red, lightweight, a dollar store toy. Her hands trembled, but her eyes didn't flinch. "Sir, I would never hurt him." The plastic saw clicked harmlessly against her palm as she handed it over. Jamie reached toward her. "She's the only one who ever plays with me. Leonard looked from his son, to Wendy, to the toy. His throat went dry. The last time Jamie had laughed like this, Rachel was still alive. He took a slow step back, realizing the weight of his outburst, and then Wendy said quietly, her voice even, "You saw what you were ready to see, Mr. Campbell, not what was really happening. If this moment hit you deep, don't just scroll by. Stories like this aren't just entertainment. They remind us how quick we are to judge and how often we miss the truth. If you've ever felt misjudged, unseen, or misunderstood, hit that subscribe button. You belong here. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next." Later that night, Linwood Estate returned to its usual stillness, but the tension in the air was anything but silent. Leonard stood alone in his home office, watching security footage on his wall-mounted screen. He'd isolated the camera feed from the hallway, rewound to the moment he'd heard Jamie laughing. There it was, Wendy kneeling, Jamie giggling. The toy saw in her hand. Clear as day. No threat, no danger, just imagination and love. Still, something twisted inside him. Why? Because it wasn't him Jamie was laughing with, because some part of Leonard still believed people didn't just give affection freely, not without wanting something in return. He paused the footage and zoomed in on Wendy's face. Calm, smiling, unafraid. Meanwhile, upstairs, Wendy tucked Jamie into bed. "Will Daddy be mad at me?" Jamie whispered. "No, baby," she said, brushing his curls back. "He's just learning how to see again." Jamie frowned. "Like when you get glasses." Wendy smiled. "Exactly." She stood to leave, but his small hand grabbed hers. "Don't go." That tiny, broken request. It stayed with her long after she left the room. The next morning, Leonard cornered her in the kitchen. "No more play acting, no more saws. This isn't a daycare, it's my home." Wendy didn't flinch. "With all due respect, Mr. Campbell, it's also his home, or at least it should feel like it." Leonard's jaw clenched. "You were hired to clean and supervise, not turn him into a clown." "I wasn't turning him into anything," she said. "I was helping him feel like a child again." He scoffed. "You're very quick with words for someone in your position." Wendy's expression turned cold. "And you're very quick with suspicion for someone who hasn't spent more than 5 minutes talking to his own son this week." Silence. Thick, charged. He turned and walked out. That afternoon Jamie barely spoke. No pirate games, no laughter. Just long, quiet stares out the window. The house, once momentarily full of life, slipped back into hollow routine. Wendy cleaned in silence. Leonard worked in silence, and Jamie existed in silence. But in that silence, something started to crack. Not in Jamie, not in Wendy, in Leonard. The storm rolled in just after lunch. Thick grey clouds swallowed the sky above Linwood Estate, and by mid-afternoon, the roads surrounding the mansion were flooded, blocked, and shut down. Power flickered twice. Wendy stood near the kitchen window, watching raindrops streak the glass. The wind whistled like something was screaming just out of sight. "Looks like the roads won't be clearing up till tomorrow at the earliest," the butler said, checking his phone. Leonard looked up from the kitchen island. "So that means staff won't be able to get in or out, sir. Wendy's stuck here overnight." Wendy didn't flinch. "I'll stay in the guest wing." Leonard gave a short nod. "Fine." That evening, as the rain slammed against the estate, Jamie's coughs echoed from upstairs. He'd been sniffling all day, but now his skin was warm. Too warm. Wendy rushed into his room with a damp cloth, wiping his forehead. "It's okay, Captain. I've got you." Jamie blinked up, delirious. "Are the pirates coming?" "No, baby," she whispered. "Not tonight." Leonard stood in the doorway, watching silently. "She needs medicine," Wendy said, not looking at him. "There's children's Tylenol in the cabinet, but he needs to be monitored tonight." Leonard looked at his son, small and sweating in the sheets. "I'll call the estate doctor." Wendy turned to him now. "He doesn't need a doctor. He needs someone to sit with him, someone he trusts." Leonard didn't reply. He left the room. By dinner, the storm had knocked the satellite out. No Wi-Fi, no TV, just rain, thunder, and a house full of ghosts. Leonard sat at the long mahogany dining table, alone, until Jamie coughed again and Wendy entered, carrying a tray. "For him," she said, setting it down. "You didn't have to." "I know." She walked away, but then paused. "You ever read to him?" Leonard looked up. "No," he said too honestly. That night, Wendy read to Jamie in his room. Her voice was soft, soothing, wrapping the boy in warmth. Outside, lightning cracked across the Pennsylvania sky. Leonard stood in the hallway, watching through the doorframe, and for the first time in years, he felt like a stranger in his own home. Downstairs, the fire crackled in the sitting room. Wendy sat on one end of the couch. Leonard sat on the other. Silence, until Leonard spoke. He was laughing, that day with the saw. Really laughing. Wendy nodded. "You noticed?" He looked at her, his voice raw. "It scared me." She turned to him, eyes soft but unwavering. "Sometimes love does." The next morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight broke through cracks in the heavy clouds, leaving behind puddles and a washed-out silence. Jamie's fever had come down. Wendy was asleep in the chair beside his bed, arms folded, her head tilted back, still guarding him, even in her dreams. Leonard stepped inside and quietly laid a blanket over her shoulders. He glanced at Jamie, still asleep but breathing easier now. As he turned to leave, something on the nightstand caught his eye, a folded piece of paper, childlike handwriting. "To Mommy in heaven, I miss you. I dream about your hugs. I asked Daddy if angels get sad. He said no, I hope that's true. I don't think Daddy remembers how to smile. But Wendy makes me feel warm, like you did. I wish she could stay forever. She smells like cinnamon and hugs. Please don't be mad at me for liking someone else. Love." Jamie. Leonard sat down slowly. He read it twice, then a third time, and the truth hit him harder than any board meeting ever had. His son was grieving, and he had been too absent to see it. Later that afternoon, Wendy stood at the back of the estate, hanging fresh bed sheets to dry in the rare autumn sun. Leonard approached her slowly. "You remind him of her," he said. Wendy turned. "He wrote her a letter," Leonard continued. "Said you made him feel warm, said you smelled like cinnamon and hugs." Wendy exhaled a trembling breath, blinking back tears. "She must have been special." "She was." He paused. "But I haven't talked about her in years, not even with Jamie." Wendy nodded, quiet. Then she said, "I lost someone too." Leonard tilted his head. "A little girl," she whispered. "Her name was Autumn, born with spinal muscular atrophy. Doctors said she might live to 4. She made it to 5. Her voice cracked. When she smiled, it lit up the world. Then one day it just went out." Leonard said nothing. The silence didn't ask for words, only understanding. They stood in that stillness for a long moment. No accusations, no power games, just two people broken differently, but slowly starting to recognize the cracks in each other. If this part made you pause, if Wendy's story touched something real inside you, don't just feel it. Hit the subscribe button. We tell stories that go beneath the surface, and honestly, if more people listened this deeply, the world might just start to heal. So stick around, be part of something more than just a channel. The next few days unfolded like a dream neither of them dared to claim. The roads had reopened, the storm passed, but Wendy didn't leave. Not because she had to stay, but because Leonard never told her to go. On Tuesday, Wendy made pancakes shaped like pirate ships. Jamie giggled through syrup and cinnamon, smearing chocolate sauce across his cheek like war paint. Leonard walked into the kitchen, paused, and instead of his usual black coffee and newspaper, he sat down. Wendy raised an eyebrow. "Joining us, Mr. Campbell?" He smirked. "If I'm allowed." Jamie grinned. "Only if you talk like a sailor." Leonard leaned in, deepened his voice. "Aye, ye scallywags, pass the grog. Extra maple." The room erupted in laughter. For the first time in over a year, Leonard laughed with his son. That afternoon, Jamie painted in the sunroom. Wendy helped mix colors while Leonard handled the brushes. "You're pretty good at this," Wendy said, watching Leonard dab blues and greys across the canvas. Leonard shrugged. "Rachel used to paint. I just watched her. I guess some of it stuck." "Does it hurt?" Wendy asked gently. "Talking about her?" Leonard nodded. "Yeah, but it hurts less when I'm doing this." Wendy reached for his hand, just briefly, and their fingers touched, just for a second. But it said more than 1,000 words. Later that night, they all gathered in the garden under soft lights. Jamie rolled his wheelchair over to Leonard with a flower crown he and Wendy had made. "This is for you," he said. Leonard blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because you're the king, and she's the queen," Jamie said innocently. "And I'm your pirate prince." Leonard looked at Wendy. She was smiling, but her eyes were glassy. He took the flower crown and placed it gently on his head. They all laughed. Together. For a moment it felt like a family. Inside, long after Jamie was asleep, Leonard and Wendy stood at the bottom of the stairs. Wendy spoke first. "I should probably go home soon." Leonard didn't answer right away. "I know," he finally said, "but I wish you didn't have to." That silence again, the kind that holds a confession neither of them is brave enough to make. Wendy looked up at him. "Don't make me want something you're not willing to give." Leonard nodded slowly. "I'm trying." Saturday came with sunlight, but no peace. Wendy was helping Jamie build a cardboard pirate ship on the patio when a sleek black Mercedes pulled into the gravel driveway. Jamie tilted his head. "Who's that?" Wendy stood slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. "I don't know." From the car stepped a woman in heels and tailored silence. Leonard's sister, Vanessa Campbell, cold, polished, always scanning for flaws like a bloodhound on Wall Street. She strode past the garden without a glance at Jamie and entered the house. Leonard met her in the foyer. "You could have called," he muttered. "I did. Your assistant ignored me." Again. Her eyes flicked toward the window. "She's still here." Leonard didn't answer. An hour later, Vanessa found Wendy alone in the kitchen. "You've certainly made yourself comfortable here," she said, each word dipped in venom. Wendy turned. "Excuse me?" "You're not the first woman to find opportunity behind grief," Vanessa said, leaning against the counter. "Leonard is vulnerable. And my nephew? He's just a boy, easily swayed. You've clearly filled the mother-shaped hole." Wendy stiffened. "I care about that boy like he's my own." "And that's exactly the problem," Vanessa snapped. "You're not his own. You're an employee, don't forget that." Leonard entered mid-conversation. "What's going on?" he asked, voice wary. Wendy turned to him. "She thinks I'm manipulating you, using Jamie to get closer." Leonard's eyes flicked between them. And then, he hesitated. That split second of silence, it crushed her. "You don't believe that, do you?" Wendy whispered. Leonard opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Wendy stepped back. "Wow. After everything." Vanessa folded her arms. "Some people know their place. Others need to be reminded." Wendy laughed bitterly. "My place? Right. The maid. The help. The black woman in the white man's house, so it must be a scheme." "Wendy, stop," Leonard said quietly. But she wasn't done. Her voice shook now. "You let me into your son's life. Let me love him. Let me hold space you were too afraid to fill, and now you won't even speak up for me." Jamie rolled into the room wide-eyed. "What's happening?" Wendy knelt beside him. "I have to go now, baby." "No," Jamie cried. "Why?" "I wasn't supposed to stay this long," she said gently. "Sometimes people don't want you to love what's not yours." Tears welled in Jamie's eyes. Leonard stood frozen. Wendy rose, tears streaking her cheeks. "I lost a daughter once. I didn't think I'd ever get to feel that kind of love again." She looked Leonard dead in the eyes. "But you made me believe I could. That's the cruelest part." Then she walked away. And Leonard, he let her. 3 days passed. No laughter, no cardboard swords, no cinnamon pancakes. Just silence. Jamie stopped eating with his father, refused bedtime stories, refused eye contact. The only sentence he muttered, barely above a whisper, was, "You made her leave." Leonard stood in the hallway that first night, listening to his son cry behind the closed door. He didn't knock. He sat in his office with the lights off, the glow of his monitor bouncing back unread emails and unsent replies. His coffee went cold. His hands shook as they hovered over the keyboard. He had drafted 5 messages to Wendy, deleted all of them. He'd always known how to build tech, but never how to rebuild trust. On the 4th morning, he wandered into the sunroom. Jamie's pirate crown still sat on the windowsill, the one they'd made together. The cardboard ship lay collapsed on the floor, like a ruin. Beside it, the flower Wendy had planted in the small ceramic pot. It hadn't been watered since she left. Now it was wilting. Leonard stared at it for a long time, and something cracked. That night, he stood outside Jamie's door. This time, he knocked. "Can I come in?" No answer. He stepped inside anyway. Jamie lay curled up on his side, eyes puffy. "I miss her too," Leonard said quietly. Jamie didn't move. Leonard sat on the edge of the bed. "I didn't speak up. I should have. I froze. And it hurt you. Hurt her. That's on me." He took a breath. "I let someone else's voice be louder than my own, because it was easier than admitting I was scared." Jamie sniffled. "Scared of what?" Leonard smiled, eyes watery. "Of losing someone again." Jamie turned toward him now. "But you already did." Leonard nodded. "I know." The next morning, Leonard got in his car and drove. He didn't call first, didn't send his driver, didn't prepare a speech. He just showed up at a modest townhouse 30 minutes outside the estate. Wendy opened the door in a hoodie and sweatpants, her eyes puffy from sleep or crying. They stared at each other, and for once, Leonard didn't fill the silence. He stepped forward. "I miss your cinnamon pancakes," he said. Wendy blinked. "That's all you've got?" He shook his head. "No. But I thought it might be the safest place to start." She crossed her arms. He stepped closer. "I was afraid of loving someone I couldn't control, and I punished you for making me feel again." Wendy didn't reply. "I came here because Jamie needs you, but not just him. I do too. And not as help, or staff, or anything with a title." He looked her dead in the eyes. "I came to ask you to come home, but only if you want to, as family." She was silent for a long time, then said, "You're 3 days late, but I was hoping you'd come." 2 weeks later, the gates of Linwood Estate swung open, but this time the silence inside was not heavy. It was soft, gentle, the kind of quiet that lets joy breathe without rushing it. In the backyard, Jamie sat in his wheelchair, wearing a pirate hat made of felt. His cheeks were streaked with green paint. His hands were covered in glue. Across from him, Wendy knelt with cardboard, scissors, duct tape, and a broomstick. "Hold still, Captain," she said, smiling. Leonard watched from the patio, holding a cup of coffee, and this time, when he saw Wendy kneel beside Jamie's leg with a saw, he didn't flinch, because now he saw everything he missed before. The toy saw, the love in her eyes, the peace in Jamie's laughter. "You know," Leonard said, stepping toward them, "this is where I thought you were trying to amputate him." Jamie giggled. "Told you we were building a pirate leg." Wendy looked up. "Glad you finally believe me." Leonard crouched beside them. "I believed you the moment I saw him smile." Wendy raised an eyebrow. "Took you long enough." Leonard smiled. "Yeah, but I got here. That's what matters." That evening, Wendy stood in the sunroom, gazing out at the estate's garden. Leonard approached quietly and placed something in her hand, a simple gold key. She looked at it, confused. "To the front door," he said, "so you never have to knock again." Wendy's eyes welled up. "You sure?" He nodded. "Family lives here. You belong here." Jamie rolled in at that moment, holding a small handmade button. "I made this for you." Wendy took it. It read, "Mum too." She burst into tears, pulling him into her arms. Leonard stood there, silently watching, his heart full for the first time in years. Just weeks ago, this mansion was nothing but a polished shell. Now, laughter filled its walls, and love, unexpected, unplanned love, had taken root. If this story made you feel something, if you smiled, cried, or thought about someone you love, don't leave without subscribing, not for views, not for numbers, but because stories like this remind us what it means to be human. And if you felt even a second of truth here, stick around. You're home now.